How do you deal with interruptions? If you're anything like me, you don't really like interruptions. Now, I love people. It's a big part of my job is to be with people, to love people, to care for people. I really do like and love people. But how about you? Are you anything like me in that there are times, though, you want to guard against some interruptions of people? Some walk-ups, some unplanned visits, those types of moments. How do you deal with that? In fact, you may actually find that Jesus has interrupted your life too much. Have you ever thought about that? Maybe he's interrupted, upset the apple cart of your life unto, he keeps speaking to you about materialism. Maybe he interrupts you to a certain extent with a still small voice when you might be talking badly about somebody. Maybe there's some gossip or slander that's still there and he interrupts it. Maybe your view of others. Maybe he interrupts and he brings his word rather than a covetous or an envious thought or word. Other times when he just interrupts. I try to mitigate the interruptions in my own life by trying to do very deep work in the beginning of the day. But what's fascinating is, even as I do that, I need to still be open to the interruptions that the Lord wants to bring into my life. More and more, I'm a very, I don't know if I'm an organized person, but I really need structure. Almost each day I know exactly what I should be doing at each hour. I really guard that. But there are times that I can get out in front of what the Lord wants to do. I anticipate that he's going to direct my steps as if, okay, Lord, come this way. I've already planned everything out. Just bless what I'm doing. Just come along for the ride. Rather than, in my uninterrupted time, allow him to interrupt it so that he can do an incredible work in my life that day. Otherwise, it becomes routine. And I don't know about you, but you may have heard this, that you can't spell routine without rut. And maybe you've been getting into some ruts and he is intentionally interrupting the ruts so that your life will be one that's more on mission rather than on the expectation of what you think you should be doing. So, for this week and for next week, as we conclude Luke chapter 8, two fantastic stories, very different. However, I think that they're both about interruptions. The more that I unpack them, the more that I study them, I see that they are about interruptions. So I want you to check this out with me at Luke chapter 8, beginning with verse 26. The heading that I have in the ESV is, Jesus heals a man with a demon. Now this is going to be the main part of the story, but I want you to watch, there's somewhat of a surprise ending where there are some people that interrupt a miracle that Jesus accomplishes. I want you to watch for that because the main idea of the story is that Jesus heals a demon-possessed man. He's been that way a very, very long time. But those that see it, that witness it, they really struggle with how he does it, and they actually interrupt the miracle. They interrupt the residual effect of the miracle. Fascinating. So here we go. Luke chapter 8, beginning with verse 26. Then they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, or the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. I'll pause there already. The Gerasenes, or the Gerasenes, are an area just off the Sea of Galilee, comprised of Gergesa, which is a village, Gadara, which is a larger area, and then a principal city entitled Gerasa. They collectively are the Gerasenes, or some would say the Gerasenes, this area, this region. So Jesus comes there, and it says it's opposite Galilee, which is one of the fishing communities there in the northern part of Israel. So continuing on in the flow, verse 27. When Jesus had stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. Now watch this flow. See if you can picture what's taking place. For a long time he had worn no clothes. If he had not lived in a house but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out, fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains, shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. It's very interesting at the outset of this. It says he's from the city. He is demon-possessed and living among the dead, living as dead, alive but as if dead. No more best days. No more the best is yet to come. This is his lot in life. People try to chain him. He continues to break it. And this evil spirit drives him out into the wilderness. Now, did you see? He actually calls on the name of the Lord, which is very interesting. And I don't want to pull on this too much tonight. But he recognizes the Son of God. He calls him by name. He knows who he is. He knows him by title. He knows him by capability. And so, there is an implication at this point as Jesus interrupts the scene, as he comes into this moment. Are you going to remain dead or will you come alive? And he commands that unclean spirit to come out. Think about the power. Think about the possession that was already resident in this man. It had seized him. He's under guard. He was bound, but he would break the bonds. Again, driven into the very desert, and then somehow would come back again during more calm times. Jesus breaks into this moment, and he supersedes the power, supersedes the possession of the demon that is there. In fact, it's not just one demon. Look at verse 30. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. If they come out of that place, out of the man who's housing them literally, they would be displaced and cast. And so they didn't want that to happen, to be displaced and then put actually into the abyss, put back to where they should be. A legion. So, a legion during that time frame would be this. 10 cohorts, each of 500 men. If you do the math along with me, that's 5,000. Some would believe that was a literal number. Some would believe it's figurative. Regardless, whether literal or figurative, there is a description here of immense power and possession. He begs him not to cast him aside. So then Jesus, taking the inventory of what's going on in the landscape here, verse 32. A large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter these. He gave them permission. There's a certain sight that the demons had. There was a wherewithal to recognize the pigs. Jesus, recognizing that they're there as well, grants permission. He speaks. Again, he supersedes the power that was there, bringing his own command, his own power, a heavenly power superseding this demonic, wicked, hellish power. And there's a removal. Jesus cast them right into the large herd of pigs. Verse 33 continues. The demons came out of the man and entered the pigs. And the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. Demons into the pigs drowned. Verse 34. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. Now at this point, these are the herdsmen to whom the pigs belonged. They're more in awe and fear than there is anger. They tell what takes place. They flee and they tell what takes place. At this point, there's not as much anger as there is fear and awe. Track that with me. Continue to verse 35. Then people went out to see what had happened. They came to Jesus, found the man for whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. Come on, can you just think about this for a moment? The restorative work of Jesus in this man. Can you just think about what the reaction should have been with all of the onlookers? The herdsmen, not to flee, but to remain close. Those that hear about it, that have no skin in the game, it's not their pigs, there's no loss that they're experiencing. Why there is not this celebration? Why isn't there more of a curiosity to know who Jesus is? Why is there not a healthy fear to come closer rather than to keep a distance? He is sitting at the feet of Jesus. there is a completion of the miracle, that he's not just in his right mind, he is now clothed. I love that. Jesus, or those that are there, we don't get the idea of who does this, who provides the clothing, but his dignity is restored. The miracle is complete. There is a brand new you, where there used to be no more hope for tomorrow. Your best days long gone. You're just merely surviving, barely, cast aside. No job, no reputation, no family, no place to live, no income, no health, no provision. You get the idea, right? All of that restored. But they're afraid. This isn't a good fear. It isn't a healthy fear. It's a fear that keeps them on the periphery. It's a fear that keeps them at a distance. It's a fear that they don't like the interruption that Jesus brings. Then that interruption transitions into this. Verse 36. And those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been healed. They're eyewitnesses. This is the way that he was. This is the way that he is. Dramatic change. But you don't get this awe-inspired response. You still see some, we're not really sure what to make of what just took place. Verse 37. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked him to depart from them. For they were seized with, and here it is again, there's a little bit more emphasis here. They were seized with great fear. So we got into the boat and returned. Come on, they asked him to depart. Is it possible that partly why is they realized his power was greater still? For us today, that means that there's nothing in our lives that is hidden. Think about this. He can interrupt anything in our lives. It might be some good moments. It might be that you're tracking along with your day just like I do each Monday morning and each Tuesday morning, and I think I'm doing a good work and laying it out and stewarding the time and working harder and working smarter. And then Jesus comes with a tap and he might be interrupting my good day. Also, more often than I would care to admit, sometimes he interrupts the wrong thinking, interrupts the wrong way. Maybe there's certain things that it's good until it's not. Maybe we're treasuring the wrong things. Maybe we're harboring certain areas and we want him at a distance. Jesus will let you know when we want you and we need you, but don't you come in unsolicited, afraid. Yeah, true, he had awesome power, but not a fear to cast him aside or they themselves to run. Remember, there's two different groups of people. The herdsmen immediately bolt. Then there are others that are eyewitnesses, and then they ask Jesus actually to depart because they're seized with such great fear. Come on. Why would you cast the one aside who actually can cast fear aside? It's a little bit ironic, isn't it? So then you have this incredible transition that takes place, and it's a sad one actually. For this people, and this is why the story is actually told. Now watch this. In the beginning, the story is really about the demoniac, right? But then the people's responses mean that there's a different emphasis as to why Luke has this passage here. Think about this for a moment. If you know anything about the scriptures, you'll know that each passage usually has one main idea. Then you'll have others that build off of it as secondary or tertiary ideas. Sometimes they're connected and they support the main idea as if it was a triangle or this covering that comes down. And then the others that are just complementary and they're not necessarily connected or tethered. Sometimes they're tethered and sometimes they're not. But there's usually one main idea. You don't usually see a shift, but that's exactly what takes place here. There's a shift in the main idea. The first idea is that there's power, there's presence that goes out from Jesus that's greater than anything that even a demon-possession person would have within them. Jesus' power is greater. But then the response to them is not one of glorifying God. That's why Jesus provides a miracle so that there be benefit to people, but his Father will receive glory. But that doesn't happen here. So then the emphasis shifts again because these people value property over people. They value their economy over empathy. I fear this is in our world today. There's a misprioritization. Jesus, just leave it alone. Sure, some are bound, but as long as I'm okay. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt me to even go towards that other person. Don't interrupt what's going on. Don't bring fear. Just leave it alone. Listen, for all the rest of us, it's okay. Yes, for that guy, it's better. But for all the rest of us, we're not really sure. And it's typified in the fact that you ruined our livestock. I'm not sure that you are welcome here, Jesus. We're not sure we want you to interrupt. So Jesus exposes where their hearts are. And it becomes the main part of the story. As long as the demoniac was tucked away, kept to his side, then we're good. Verse 38. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, return to your home, declare how much God has done for you. And he went away, proclaiming to the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. This is key. This is key from this standpoint. Let's go back for a moment. Each time Jesus accomplishes a miracle, it's to glorify the Father. It's to benefit the one, this man benefited, but also to glorify the Father. This man wants to actually be with Jesus. And I don't think it's that he's wanting to see parlor tricks. I think he has seen true power, presence, compassion, empathy. Jesus has valued a person over property. He's valuing a life changed. He's valuing a new creation. It's an incredible principle that takes place. In many other passages of Scripture, think about this. In many other passages of Scripture, you'll actually see it in the next portion that we go to later on in Luke chapter 8. In many other passages, Jesus will say, listen, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Because there's already glory that's taking place. There's already awe. There's already a crowd that's enveloping Jesus. Here it's the opposite. There isn't a good receptivity to Jesus. The herdsmen don't react well. Those that were eyewitnesses cared more about seeing the pigs go down than the man rise up. And so Jesus asked them to stay there, declare how much God has done for you. Keep remembering. Remember that when Jesus comes, the interruption is worth it. He didn't just interrupt momentarily. He reverses the destiny and the destination of our lives. It's more than just salvation. It's he has come to change everything. He's not just come to be able to carve out heaven for us, and surely that's enough. He's coming to interrupt each day to rewrite us, to come back to a place where the book of Proverbs says in chapter 4, don't look to the left or to the right, but choose only ways that are firm. Jesus interrupts when he knows that the next step might not be so firm, or it's only a good one, not a best one. Or we begin to drift into wickedness rather than righteousness. And so he interrupts. He interrupts to put us back on mission. There's something that he does that's extravagant to that end. So the area needed a faithful testimony, proclaiming throughout the whole city without limit how much Jesus had done for him. It's not always about the preaching. It's, I don't know about you, but I was in bondage. Literal, spiritual, but now I'm free. And Jesus is the one that did it. The great interrupter, the great disruptor. So now back to you, back to me. What do you do to guard the interruptions in your life? Maybe you guard against people, some moments, some things that come in, so that you can do some deep work. You can get some good things done. But what if, as you're carving that out, what if Jesus comes to interrupt? What if he's coming to interrupt your life, or he's wanting to use you to be part of a miracle? Will you allow him to interrupt you so that you could be part of a larger story of his glory? What would you do? I want you to ponder that this week. Would you take it to your prayer closet, actually? Will you let him interrupt your life? I love you so very much, and I'm grateful that you were with us tonight. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. God bless you all. See you.